Hello, handsome. What a day, huh?
What?
I won't lie, lad, that was a tough one.
Yes, hello. I know this video has been split between two parts, and yes, I know I've literally abandoned you for quite some time, but I literally had to deal with this dumbass editing software, and as well as my exams. And you cannot say shit about it because I actually have an excuse instead of being lazy. Anyway, I'm going to be talking about the traps as well as the throwing weapons within Dying Light 1 and Dying Light 2 and compare them together, talk about their goods and downsides and why they're good and why they're bad in some ways. Is this an unfair comparison? Yes, but I don't care because a lot of people nowadays treat these two games as being exactly the same, so I'm in a more adjustable position as to being able to talk about it without giving two singular shits about it. Anyway, so let's talk about them, starting up with the explosive ordnance, that being the grenades, C4, and as well as the mines on both ends. So let's get into it. Ah, fuck, my leg. The grenades in Dying Light 1 are fairly simple and effective, but only on early to mid game. As soon as the late game comes in, they are a little bit inconsistent, as long as the enemies are not exactly on top of each other stepping on it, they're not going to instantly die from it. If they're directly on top of it, they're going to get instantly killed. This only really affects towards biters, virals, and as well as human enemies. But if the human enemies see you throw a grenade at them, they're gonna fucking ditch the fuck away, like they just found that they are having twinsies. Or even so. Anyway. But why are the grenades so inconsistent? Like I said, if they're not directly on top of the grenade itself, they're not going to die instantly. And if they're even remotely like 1 or 2 meters away from the grenade itself, they're just simply going to drop down and take almost zero damage whatsoever. And it doesn't even launch them high up in the air, so fall damage is not going to do absolute butt-fuck nothing. So that's another problem. As for Dying Light 2, as long as they're in the explosion radius, they're going to be taking the full damage of it, including you. Even you are not safe. If your toes are even touching the explosion radius, you are going to be D-O-N-E fucked in some way or another. So, yeah, have at it that way. However, the big difference between them is that the grenades at max level in Dying Light 2 will shoot out a small cluster grenades that will also deal small bit of damage and as well as knock enemies on the ground. And the explosion radius is kind of large, and so, yeah. Although the grenades in Dying Light 2 are a little bit expensive because it requires you to craft in batteries, but you can also find them through Peacekeeper shops as long as you side with them. But even at level 1, grenades are still very effective, mainly against human enemies because it will still knock them on the ground despite the extremely low damage. Again, Dying Light 1 grenades are fine, but then again, why would you really be using grenades when you can literally just spam two-handed weapons and just literally defeat a lot of the enemies? Grab a very powerful two-handed weapon with a good modification, and you already have something that is able to do more damage and give you more points and do a better job than that of a grenade. It still has its uses when it comes to against biters, but as soon as virals or even human enemies come in, they're going to be a little bit problematic. Don't even try to bother use these on larger enemies like Molotovs, goons, or demolishes because they're entirely useless. Same with Dying Light 2. As for the elemental grenades itself from Dying Light 1, they're kinda useless because why would you be using them when you can literally just use a trap bomb, like the firecrackers that also explode in the end? Why would you be using these? Do not even bother. The only good one is the freezing grenade, but then again, why would you be using this? The toxins are fine, and the freezings are fine, but then again, the explosive, like, bomb traps exist as well. Just use those, than the fucking freezing grenades. And why would you be using Shrapnel? Because it's just terrible. Bleed effect is, like, the worst in the Dying Light franchise. So, yeah. Dying Light 1, or Dying Light 2 doesn't really have any grenade variants, so I'm gonna have to ignore that one. Now let's talk about the C4. The C4 in Dying Light 1 is absolutely atrocious. It's literally the grenade, but significantly worse. Because the explosion radius is smaller and it deals less damage somehow, based on what I've been testing. If the enemies are literally not inside the grenade itself inappropriately, that sounds extremely wrong, I'm very sorry for that. Anyway, if they're not directly inside of the grenade, or the C4 itself, then they're not even going to take any fucking damage whatsoever. They're just going to get knocked on the floor and maybe take a few bit of damage. But if you stick it onto someone, then they're pretty much just dead instantly. But then again, if the enemies are not exactly right next to the other guy, even cuddling for that matter, they're not going to hardly take any damage whatsoever. They're just going to get knocked on the floor and hardly just walk away with a scratch and that's it. So yeah, the explosion radius is worse, plus it's a lot more expensive, and the other elemental variants that it has is also terrible. Do not even bother using this, just stick with the grenades. That's it. Because why would you be using this? Unless, you know, you have a lot of materials on your hands, you want to craft some stuff. So go ahead. As for Dying Light 2, they're very effective because they deal a lot more damage and have a larger explosion radius than that of the grenades on Dying Light 2. At max level, they're very powerful, capable of dishing out really huge amounts of damage to a lot of the enemies. And even if it doesn't kill them outright directly with 1 or 2 explosions, their health are going to be significantly reduced to the point where you can just really bash them very easily. One thing I forgot to mention about the grenades in Dying Light 2 is, sure, they're not capable of insta-killing like some renegades, like the one-handed and as well as the two-handed renegades, but their health are going to be so low to the point that it doesn't practically matter, because if the grenade itself doesn't kill them, then the cluster ones. If the cluster ones don't do it, then the fall damage is going to do it. If not, they're going to be at low health to the point where a single kick is enough to literally just get rid of them, or a few good bash. So yeah. The C4 is a little bit different than the grenade, mainly because grenades have a much more, like, larger throwing radius, meanwhile the C4 has a shorter throwing range. These are a lot more better in, like, crowded areas and as well as against larger enemies, mainly because of the fact that they sort of stick onto it, meaning that you can literally stick onto someone, get behind cover, and instantly, like, detonated and come out. The problem with the grenade is that if you're being chased by, like, say, Molotovs or, like, have a demolisher come after you, then it's going to be a little bit problematic because you have to sort of time your throw in order to be able to deal damage. With the C4, you can literally just stick, run, blow up, and that's it. It deals really good high amounts of damage, but you have to be very careful as long as you're also in the radius, you're going to be instantly dead without even a second thought whatsoever. As for the mine on both sides, surprisingly the mine in Dying Light 1 is literally better than both the C4 and as well as the grenade altogether, and plus you get them for free from the Quartermaster on the following DLC. Why is the mine so damn powerful? I have no fucking idea. But the problem I really have with the mine in Dying Light 1 is that Crane doesn't throw it, he literally just drops it like it's a fucking microphone. Like he just dropped a rap speech or some shit and just dropped it off the floor and just mined his own day. So how does the mine work? As long as the enemies are within the close vicinity of it, even if they breathe towards it, the mine is going to instantly explode. You can also detonate it by just shooting it. That's also another way. But the explosion radius is really damn big, and for some reason they have the capacity of literally knocking enemies high up in the air to the point that it makes the grenades look like firecrackers. And I am not joking when I say this. Again, all of these explosives are not necessarily that good against larger targets because grenades are like, or explosion ordinances in general are not really that good, but either way. The landmines are actually surprisingly good, even against human enemies, which is kind of surprising. Good damage, good explosion radius, and they don't need to be directly on top of it to die. As long as they're in the radius, the explosion is not what's going to kill them, it's mostly the fall damage. The same thing can sort of be said about Dying Light 2, but this time they deal a lot more damage and they have a bit of an activation time. As soon as you throw the mines, they have a bit of an arming time before they're actually able to be detonated. And the thing is, the problem with the mines in Dying Light 2 is that the enemies have to be exactly on top of it in order to be able to detonate it. And consider the fact that a, say, volatile, viral, or a human enemy have like normal-sized feet, it's not going to really be effective that much. But what's really damn good is against the bigger boys, like the volatile tyrants, the goons, and the demolishers, because they got bigger feet. Bigger feet equals bigger steps, and bigger steps meaning bigger chance of stepping onto it, and once they step on it, they're going to die instantly. While it doesn't really instantly kill them, if you drop like at least 5 of them, it is going to really do a lot of damage, and maybe even insta-kill them directly. So yeah. Mines are very good against bigger enemies, so yeah. The problem I have with the explosive ordnance in Dying Light 1 is that a lot of them are just kinda overshadowed or just don't really have a good use. Again, why would you be really using grenades when you can literally just spam the two-handed weapons with the windmill skill? Why would you be using C4 when grenades exist? And mines are sort of the only ones that are even really good, but you're sort of risking you're putting a risky position on yourself, because if you throw it in a crowd and you're close, you're going to get messed up in one way or another, and you can't really throw these because Crane literally just drops it. Grenades in Dying Light 2 are good against human enemies and biters, C4 are incredible against virals and volatiles, mines are incredibly well against the bigger boys, and that's it. And even despite the elemental effects that they have, they're kinda useless, so don't even bother. Now let's go over with the exploding trap bombs. But why not firecrackers? Because firecrackers are considered as utilities according to the game's blueprint system, or the crafting section. So you can't flame me for it, so shut up. There are 3 different variants of the exploding trap bombs: shrapnel, toxin, and exploding. Shrapnel is absolutely useless, stay the fuck away from it. Exploding ones are literally worse than all of the other explosive ornaments that I mentioned, and the toxin is the only genuine good one because it actually keeps them distracted for a significantly longer period. And because of the fact that the toxin is the only effect in the game that actually affects the infected, which is weird, but I'm not gonna question it, it's actually really damn good if you want to be able to distract them for a longer period. However, the star of the show would be Kurt's bomb. I don't know what the fuck Kurt was doing, or even Techland for that matter. They were probably on some very enhanced methamphetamine made by Walter White himself, to the point where these Kurt's bombs are literally just meteorites or little nukes in a fucking tin can. Like, I know Kurt is an alcoholic himself, but holy fucking shit, what did you even put inside this damn thing? A meteorite? Uranium? What do you even put on this? Like, my man was so drunk that he probably forgot what the fuck even... what type of blueprint he gave me. The thing is, I can just imagine that there's like a tiny ass car just like sitting inside that tin can, that when it explodes, that it just like comes out so fast that we don't even see it. It's like that scene on Family Guy where a bully spits out a cow from a straw and it just hits him fast. Like, that's what I imagine that's coming out of the Kurt's bombs. Like, jokes aside, it's very powerful. It deals way too much damage against everything, and I mean everything. But now let's go over with the throwing weapons, like the throwing knives and the throwing stars and whatever. The throwing weapons in Dying Light 1 are fucking terrible late game and mid game, but on early game they're somewhat effective in some ways. However, the only time you're really going to be using this is, one, if you're using it to dispatch bombers, but let's be honest, there's like 10 different ways you can already do it, and two, you can only really be using this effectively in PvP, because it deals shitload of damage against everything. So, yeah, it's kind of funny how on PvP they're like very powerful, but on like the base game itself, they're fucking terrible. Even on the late game where you have like all of the legend skills, they're still terrible. And even with like the different variants of the throwing stars, like the freezing, the exploding, the fire ones, they're kind of useless except for the freezing one. But the freezing one is a little bit inconsistent, because sometimes the enemies are either frozen for like half a second, or they're either frozen for at least like 10 seconds. You're literally gambling your life at that point. And the only enemy that cannot be frozen is the Demolisher, even when his armor is like removed entirely. As for goons, the same inconsistency. It's either a half a second freeze or a 10-second freeze, and the same thing with volatiles. Against human enemies, it can be fine, but consider the fact that the human enemies and virals together are like very inconsistent, because sometimes like even if your weapon is supposed to hit them, it's just going to bounce off entirely, even against like virals and human enemies. It's just going to bounce off 99% of the time because of how janky and animation focused these enemies are. So do not even bother using these whatsoever. The only one that's good is, like I said, the freezing throwing stars, and that's it. The other like basic throwing weapons, like the tomahawk, the throwing knife, and the military shurikens and shit, they're not even good. Even at like the best, like even with all the legend skills, they're just terrible. Do not even bother using these. Like, just stay the fuck away from them unless you're a PvP player, and that's it. As for Dying Light 2, oh my god, they are incredible, and I am not glazing over it. There are a lot of reasons as to why I think of this. Firstly, you can use your knife as a way to go downwards on billboards, and you might think that's a significantly slower compared to a lot of the ways you can go down. That's not true. If you jump down and catch onto the billboard on the very bottom at the last second, you're going to negate any fall damage from it ever happening, no matter how fast you fall or from the distance you fell off. As long as you hit the bottom of the billboard with the throwing knife, or you do the animation, it's going to negate any fall damage whatsoever. Secondly, our skills. Stab and stab follow-up do shitload of damage even with the level 1 throwing knife. It either insta-kills the enemy or does a shit ton of damage to the point where a couple of bashes is enough to insta-kill them. But even if you're using a level 1 knife against a human enemy, when they're blocking and you hit them with the throwing knife, even at level 1, it's going to stagger them for a brief period, and they're not going to be blocking anymore. So, yeah. But even at max level, these things are very powerful. They're able to deal shitload of damage and are a very good backup weapon for whenever you're out of stamina or there's an enemy coming towards you and you're not comfortable like getting close to them. And so it's more of like a medium to long range weapons, because there's also the shurikens. Shurikens are better off for close range engagements because they sort of function as a shotgun pellet. Throwing 1 shurikens at max level, it actually shoots out 7 in a more like a shotgun spread, essentially. So if you throw it at an enemy directly at front of them, and if it hits all 7 shurikens on them, it's going to deal significantly more damage and maybe even insta-kill them directly. Even against volatiles, goons, and demolishers, if you're able to spam this, you're really able to shred them easily. And the thing is, the only problem with the throwing knives in Dying Light 2 is that they're not good against like the larger targets. Only on early game they're good, but on late game and like Nightmare mode and the New Game Plus specifically, they're not really that good against larger targets. But against medium and small sized targets, they're very effective. So you either want a long-range weapon, like a throwing weapon, like a knife, or you either want to have a close-range throwing weapon, like a shuriken. But even at level 1, they're still very effective because of them being able to stagger human enemies. It's going to help you significantly. So, yeah. Let's talk about the different variants. The rending knife is useless. Stay the fuck away from it. You're better off wiping your ass cheeks with it. I wouldn't suggest it otherwise, actually. The toxin knife are very good because toxins have the longest amount of elemental duration, meaning that the enemy is going to spend more time vomiting than doing anything. So if you want to keep an enemy at bay, then the toxin grenades are very good. Shock grenades are very good at applying its elemental effect towards multiple enemies. If one person is affected by it, and any other enemy nearby will be also affected as well. So this also applies to volatiles, virals, and other enemies. It sort of functions as a small UV light because whenever a volatile is affected by any elemental effect, except for bleed, they will get staggered for a short period. So a shock knife is also going to be good. As for the exploding knife, they're fine. They're just pretty much grenades that could like stick onto people, and they're good against human enemies if you want to be able to like ensure that they don't get the fuck away. So yeah, but it's a little bit expensive. So yeah, that's more like your thing. Like, do you want to be able to throw grenades and dish out huge amounts of damage in a radius, or do you want to be able to like do damage against one target and their other friends type of scenario? So yeah, they're all good in their own ways. So yeah. Next up are the Molotovs. Molotovs in Dying Light 1 are useless because why would you be using them? Like, sure, on early game they might be effective, but considering the fact that the slums have like so many like gasoline that you can set on fire and so many electrical traps and as well as so many spikes that it doesn't really matter. Like, sure, it is fine and effective against human enemies, but then again, human enemies are like somewhat easy to counter, even despite them being like very janky and very weird to fight. Like, they're very easily exploitable if you know what you're doing, but even then, like, why would you be really using a Molotov? Like, there's so many places where you can, like, insta-kill them or, like, set things on fire that Molotovs are not really going to be very useful. Like, sure, there's also the Super Molotov, but does it really have a big of a difference? Not really, no. As for Dying Light 2, they're a lot more better, mainly because of the fact that, for one, you don't take any damage from it unless it's max level. So let's talk about it. The problem I really have with the Molotov in Dying Light 2 is you could even have the fire resistance booster applied and the tankiest armor in the game, and you would still be insta-killed from it, because at max level it has a initial damage explosion as soon as it lands on something, which is pretty nice. Instant damage. But that thing insta-kills you. For some reason, even if you're max health, armor, and have boosters applied to it, it will still insta-kill you with it, which is why I have a huge problem. It's kind of funny to me how Aiden literally dies from a fucking glass bottle, then survive a literal explosion from a bomb. How does that make sense? Anyway, back to my point. But here's the thing, even if you have a level 1 Molotov, it sort of functions as a small UV light against infected, and as well as stagger and hold enemies at bay for a brief period. As long as they're in the flames, they're not going to be able to do shit. And the thing is, you're still able to just walk around the fire without any problems. There's so many like weird things about Dying Light 2, but that's what makes it funny. But either way. At max level, it is able to insta-kill you, so you have to be very careful, but if you're very careful and you know how to throw it without getting yourself killed every 5 minutes, then it's still going to really help you a lot. It's going to keep enemies at bay, a lot of enemies will not be able to get close to you, volatiles will be staggered for a brief period. Here's the thing, max level Molotovs are perfect for human enemies because they're unable to do shit, but level 1 Molotovs are perfect against volatiles because as soon as they're affected by the fire, they're going to get briefly staggered for a short period. And virals and biters are affected by it as well. They're just going to be spending time like flailing their arms around, putting themselves out of fire. That's not the same thing with Dying Light 1, where they just like completely forget about it and just still come after you. So yeah, Molotovs are just kind of useless in Dying Light 1, but they're very effective in Dying Light 2. So yeah, something. Again, I'm only talking about like base game itself. I'm not talking about like Easter eggs or like from bounties, events, or types of shit. Yes, I know the C4 is from a bounty, but Dying Light 2 has C4, so shut up. That's the only exception. Anyway, oh, and I also forgot, Dying Light 2 has a sedating knife and as well as a infected knife. The sedating knife is only exclusive to Dying Light 2, where it insta-kills bolters. Anyway, infected knives are very overpowered, but they're a little bit expensive, requiring you to use infected trophies to craft them. But it insta-kills human enemies within 3 seconds. And you might think, well, how does it insta-kill? Well, whenever an enemy or anyone, a human being specifically, is transforming in or is in a process of transforming into an infected, if you even remotely breathe on them or even touch them,
I beg your pardon.
yikes, that sounds wrong. Anyway, even if you like kick them or even like push them away in any way, they're just going to instantly die regardless. So, yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about the traps. The exploding cars on both sides are good, but Dying Light ones are very inconsistent. Sometimes the enemies will either get launched the fuck away and instantly die, sometimes they will not get affected by it whatsoever. It's literally so inconsistent, which is like very weird. And sure, you could use it again, but the problem is it takes such a it has a very lengthy animation, and if you even get hit by it, it doesn't matter because the animation is going to get cancelled entirely. So it's more like a one-time use. Enemies will go after it if you're being chased by them, so that's neat. But if there's enemies like close to you, they won't go after the car. Well, sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. They will just like stick to you. But it will help you to be able to get out. But let's be honest, a lot of times you're able to really escape enemies without any effort whatsoever, so it doesn't really matter. So, yeah, Dying Light 2 is a lot more consistent because it literally drags out all of the enemies and calls them in. And because it has a longer fuse time, or a time before it detonates, that pretty much means that the enemies are distracted for a little bit longer. And it does really good damage, and it's actually consistent. Sometimes, it's not like sometimes it doesn't affect them, it will damage everything that's close to it. So, yeah. It will distract a lot of enemies except for volatile tyrants. The electrical fences in Dying Light 1 are so fucking weird because the enemies will go towards it, but they will not go through the electricity itself, which is like very weird. You have to literally either throw them towards it, or you have to use a firecracker to do so. Like, sure, it insta-kills them, but the radius and like the gate itself is like so fucking small that you're hardly going to get like maybe 5 people stuck in there. So, yeah, it's, like, it distracts them, sure, nice, but as a way to damage them, it hardly does that. Dying Light 2, it doesn't really produce any noise, and it doesn't distract them, but as soon as one enemy is affected by it, you bet your ass other enemies are going to be instantly affected by it whatsoever. And because it's like a really large, like, metal flooring applied to the ground, and if one enemy is caught to it, then all the other enemies are going to be caught by it as well, if they're very close. Like, the radius of which enemies get electrocuted is so fucking massive that it's going to really drastically help you. Even against volatiles and other volatile tyrants, like, they will get affected by it and be either staggered or be slowed, which is really damn good. Again, the only problem is that they don't produce, like, a loud noise where it distracts them, so you have to sort of push them. But because of how big it is, I don't think it really matters. The UV light trap that Dying Light 1 has is very good, although the problem I have with it is its weird delay that it has. Well, sure, it does distract some of the enemies, but if it's like a volatile that's like right next to you, sometimes they will go after you, and sometimes they will not go after you. So it is a little bit inconsistent. It doesn't really happen instantly, and it only affects 2 volatiles and as well as the Night Runners. Basically, biters that turn into virals type of thing. I think they're called Night Runners, but either way. So, yeah, like, you could reactivate it, but then again, if a volatile sees you doing that shit, they're gonna just come out and just spit at you and do shitload of damage, and canceling the animation entirely. So, yeah, it is good. So, yeah, it does what it needs to do. Nothing special. As for Dying Light 2, it just activates instantly. There's no delay, there's no loud noise producing, it just happens directly, instantly, without any warning whatsoever. Although on slightly elevated surfaces, sometimes it does work, sometimes it doesn't work. You kind of have to look up where the compass is, and if it says UV light, then you're in the clear. Even if there's a volatile literally right next to you about to attack you, as soon as that thing goes out, it will go out. And the enemies will literally either run away or wait for that UV light to go out instantly. It gives you a breathing room, and once that shit runs out, make a huge bolt for it. So, yeah. I'm gonna sneeze. Oh, sorry. Oh my god. Anyway, that is all I can offer when it comes to comparing or talking about the traps and as well as the throwables. Are people going to be divisive about it? Yes, but I don't really care, because this is simply my opinion and how I genuinely feel. It's not because of biasness to it. So yeah. Forgive me if this took a long time. I'm having a lot of problems with the editing software itself, so forgive me. Anyway, I wish you all the best. Have a good day. Treat each other with respect, kindness, and love to each other. This is a family-friendly channel with quotation marks. Anyway, I wish you all the best, and take care of each other. Do not be an asshole, and I will see each and every one of you next time. Now get out of my house. Shoo.